Hello, welcome back to Let's Talk Title with Emerald Coast Title Services. I'm host and president of ECTS, Dion Moniz, and
I'm co-host and director of operations and licensed title agent, Ashley Bowen.
all right, so today actually we're going to talk about the new law that went into effect July 1 of this year regarding foreign buyers.
Yes, foreign buyers of real property in the state of Florida. Governor DeSantis put a restriction on them.
And why would he do such a thing?
Because he's trying to be president. So he's trying to protect our infrastructure and military bases and surrounding areas from foreign buyers from some pretty scary countries from purchasing big parcels of land.
Yeah, so ultimately the goal is to avoid spies around military installations and then avoid people buying large tracts of land, using them to produce tainted food for our food system, etc. So the law, again, went into effect July 1, and it was from Senate Bill 264. But what it does is it focuses on foreign buyers from the following countries. You got China, Russia, Iran, or Iran, depending on how you pronounce it, Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, and Syria. So anyone from those countries are not allowed to purchase either agricultural land or real property within 10 miles of a military installation or critical infrastructure facility.
Which we've determined a critical infrastructure facility is going to be water treatment plants, power plants, pretty much anything. It seems like that there's a piece of infrastructure like that within 10 miles of, anything here in our counties that we work in.
Yeah, it's essentially, well, the best way to summarize it is anything that has a fence to keep out unsecured people or personnel, it qualifies. But there's actually a list that is in the law, and it's a chemical manufacturing facility, a refinery, electrical power plant, water treatment facility, wastewater treatment plant, liquid natural gas terminal. I mean, you get the idea. So yeah, anything basically with a fence around it is going to qualify.
And
as
even though
structures.
In Destin we may be 10 miles away from Eglin or Hurlburt, Destin water users water treatment facility is right there on Main Street, smack dab in the middle of our 7-mile city.
Right.
So nothing in Destin can be bought.
Yeah, exactly. So something to be mindful of. We'll get to there are some exceptions that we'll get into in a minute, but ultimately, Ashley, what obligation does this new law impose on real estate parties?
Well, the law actually made FREC, the Florida Real Estate Commission, the police of this new law. So they're kind of putting the ball in the real estate agent's court to make sure that this law is abided by. And then, of course, Florida Realtors is pushing back, saying, whoa, but we're not allowed to discriminate against people. But we're also having to police this new law. So it is still definitely a work in progress because it just went into effect July 1, and Florida Realtors told the Senate that we're not going to be ready with these affidavits or whatever it is that you need. So a lot of the underwriters, the title underwriters, have prepared forms for the title companies to use at closing to make sure that at least the buyers are signing this affidavit, making sure that it happens on behalf of Florida Realtors, which I think that a lot of what we do is kind of like helping them out, protecting them, making sure that the real estate transaction happens and closes lawfully. So
smoothly and lawfully.
That's right. So we are having the buyers sign these forms. Every single buyer that comes through our door sign a form stating that they are not from these areas and that they abide by the law. So once we go under contract, we send them a form explaining what it is and telling them that we're going to need them to sign this affidavit. And if it's a cash transaction, we try to go ahead and get that taken care of right now, so that it's not something we have to do later on, and we're not wasting a bunch of time with someone who cannot purchase the property.
Right. So as soon as it goes under contract, we're reaching out with this affidavit because we do it like for FERPTA reasons. We do it to make sure that, with the 15% holdback. So we're already doing some stuff immediately when it goes under contract. This is just something new
that we
that
do
we're going to
immediately.
do.
And we're not discriminating against anybody. We're asking every single buyer and seller if they can sign it. And so far, it is a little bit over a month, and since the law has taken effect, and I've not had one buyer push back, they actually say, "Oh, we love your governor. We're happy to sign that." So it's not been. I haven't seen anybody push back. I know that the Florida Realtors Associations were kind of freaked out that they were going to have to do this.
Yeah.
But so far, it's so good. But just make sure that you're sending your contracts to a title company that is going to handle this for you.
Yeah, so we take the pressure off the agent. The agent doesn't have to ask those uncomfortable questions. We do it as soon as it goes under contract. That way, if they don't qualify to proceed with the sale, if they're prohibited by way of this law, then we can let the parties know, and then
save everybody time.
Yeah, exactly. They can move on to a different buyer, and they're not tied up under contract for 30, 45 days, only to find out at the end that the buyer is prohibited under this law. So,
but let's not be too scared, because there are some exceptions
yes,
to the rule.
Yes. So, and actually, before we get into the exceptions, this also applies to any of the eligible foreign buyers that are part of an LLC or a corporation. So if they're in a US-based entity, but they still fall under the foreign buyer scenario of the countries that we mentioned, it's still going to be prohibited. So we'll get into the exceptions, unless they have a de minimis interest. So that's one of the exceptions. If they're involved in an entity, but they have a de minimis interest, which is basically almost zero, then they can be exempt.
But for the most part, if you have an LLC, it's a Florida LLC, there's 3 members who are US citizens and 1 member is from China, they can't buy this property.
Right. Unless their interest is so tiny that they really have no control, no influence in the entity. They're just kind of a silent partner collecting their 1 or 2% profits, something like that. And unfortunately, the law doesn't actually define de minimis. And so hopefully we get some clarification on that down the road. But that's at least my interpretation of it. All right.
And there's other exceptions besides just the de minimis interest, is that they can purchase 1 piece of property.
Yes. They can have 1 residential property that's 2 acres or less, and not within 5 miles of a military installation or the critical infrastructure facility.
Okay.
So 1 residential property under 2 acres or 2 acres or less, and not within 5 miles.
Okay. And then what about property that is already owned by a foreign principal?
Yep. So if they own the property prior to July 1, then they're allowed to keep that property, but then they have to register with the Department of State. So they have to go into a database. That way the state can keep track of you, make sure you're not doing anything bad.
Okay. And then if they acquire property after July 1 by devise, so they can't purchase property after July 1, we've already been told that. But if they were to inherit it or get it through like debt collection or what have you.
Yep. So if they get it through a will, if they happen to be a mortgagee, so they hold a mortgage on a property and the borrower defaults, they foreclose that property and obtain it through foreclosure, stuff like that. They're allowed to keep the property or hold it for 3 years, but they have to get rid of it within that 3-year time frame. Otherwise, they're in violation. And then I guess one other exception is if they have a U.S. visa, and if they're not here on asylum, then that exempts them out as the prohibited foreign person or foreign buyer.
So like a green card or whatever. It's not for it can't just be we're here for tourism purposes. It
Correct.
has to be they're here to work
Yep.
and live.
Yep.
Okay.
Got to be a full U.S. visa. Yeah, not here for tourism purposes and not here for asylum purposes. Then you're also exempt.
So we've got a few exceptions, but for the most part, after July 1, 2023, foreign people from that list of countries that you gave us earlier, they can't buy big tracts of land in the state of Florida anymore.
Nope.
And you want to make sure that your title company is handling getting this foreign buyer affidavit executed at or before closing on your behalf, or use the real estate agent. I'll have to get it signed because every single buyer of real property, whether it have a loan or not, has to sign this affidavit.
Yeah, exactly. And to your prior comment, it's not just prohibiting them from buying big tracts of land. It's anything within the 10-mile radius of a military installation or critical infrastructure facility, which, like you said, is pretty much all of Destin. So pretty significant. So something to be mindful of if you're out there representing or working with foreign sellers.
Or buyers.
Sorry, buyers. Foreign sellers is FERPTA.
Yeah, they have something
different. That's a different podcast
also,
episode.
Be very mindful of that.
Foreign
sellers.
Be mindful of FERPTA for foreign sellers, but today we're talking about foreign buyers. So yes, if you're working with foreign buyers, be mindful of this new law that's now in effect, and just know that if you're closing with us, we'll handle all the headaches for you. We'll make sure they qualify and take care of you.
And go to our website. We should have a little form on there that gives you information. Also lists out the countries that are on the no-fly list.
That's right. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for today's topic.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Feel free to like us or follow us. You can check us out on any of our social media channels. So we appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.